Hello, it's Larry Clark with Excelsior Music Publishing, and we have another Meet the Composer session. And today we're talking to composer Jon Bubbett and Stephanie Chapman, who is a band director in Birmingham, Alabama area. Stephanie, ask all the questions you want to know about Jon and his composition career and all that stuff. Take it away.
Well, great. So first off, thanks, Jon, for inviting me to do this. I thought it was a neat opportunity, and I'm excited for my kids because I told them, like, hey, guys, I know you're home, but what a cool opportunity for you to do something different given the circumstances. So I definitely appreciate that.
Thank you for doing it. And I just appreciate Excelsior setting all this up and making all this possible. I think it's a great way of making a positive out of something that is so negatively impacting like the entire country. So yeah.
For sure. Absolutely. Well, I sent out a form to my students and I just said, hey, what are your questions for Jon? And I gave them your background and biography and just kind of said, hey, go for it. So what questions do you have? So I wrote them down, and I thought we just kind of go through these and then.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. So one of the questions my students wanted to know was, what got you into music?
Well, that's a very good question. And, you think that would be a very easy one to answer.
Right.
My mother was always a very musical person. She played piano and she had a great singing voice. And my Uncle Bobby was a guitar player. And whenever we would go to my grandmother's house, they would always get together and play. And as a matter of fact, their uncles, my mother's uncles, were the Delmore brothers, who are actually in the Country Music Hall of Fame. So
oh, wow.
I don't know. So I don't know if there was something that kind of like came down the genetic chain right there, but I guess I've just always been interested in it. But the thing that really, really set it on fire was hearing the junior high school band when they came to play. I was in the 6th grade. They came to the school I was going to. And, when I heard those guys play, I knew the die was cast. I was going to do something. I had no idea what it was going to be, but I was going to do that. And next year I joined the band and off we go. Yeah.
Well, I think definitely there's something to growing up with music around you. You know, all of my siblings were in music. My parents actually met in marching band. So I can definitely see how, that all kind of comes together. So this kind of goes along with this is, how old were you when you started playing an instrument, and what instrument was it?
I started in the 7th grade. Like I said, the junior high school band came and played at the school I was going to. I was in the 6th grade, and then so we signed up. Back in those days, they didn't do. We didn't try out on instruments. Not that I remembered. They didn't do the petting zoos that have been so popular over the last couple of years. I remember watching some old black and white beach movie, and I remember watching this bald-headed guy playing a tenor sax do a front flip off of the stage, playing tenor sax, land on his feet, still playing the tenor sax. And I thought that would be the coolest thing in the world to do. So I joined band, went home, told mom and dad, hey, I want to join the band. They said, great. Your brother tried to play cornet. Here, you can play that. So that was my selection process. So there was no testing, there was no petting zoo. It was what was in the house. No, go do it. So, and I think that's true for a lot of people too. You kind of have to use the resources you have. So.
Well, and I was talking to my coworker at the middle school. With everything going on, we're gonna have to look into those options. That's how I chose my instrument. My teacher said, which 2 or 3 are you interested in? And go with that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because, now, especially where we live in the Birmingham, Alabama area, you have to kind of control that a little bit. Otherwise, you wind up with 60 alto saxes and 30 drummers and 2 flutes.
Or everyone wants to be the tenor sax player that does front flips.
I know exactly. Bald-headed tenor sax. So, and yeah, even more so now, because you have no idea what these kind of impact these families are going to be. We've already had some people kind of indicate to some of the band staff where I still work part-time that they didn't know if they were going to be able to participate anymore. And our standard answer is, you come on, we'll worry about it later.
We'll make it work. And that needs to be the way it is.
Absolutely.
We'll make it work. Absolutely. So the next question is, what inspired you to start composing?
That too is a pretty interesting story. And again, I'm not really certain what inspired me to. I think the things that inspire us, sometimes it's just a result of hard work and sort of the fruits of our labors kind of deal. But when I was in the 11th grade, I was very fortunate that that I was able to take music theory with our choir director. And our choir program at Dothan High School in those days, Harvey McClure was the choir director, and he was just a phenomenal musician. He was such an inspiring musician. He taught music theory, and I was all things music, so I had the chance to take music theory, and I did. And we got into just all the basics, all the mechanics, of part writing. We're writing little 4-part deals, learning all the classical rules and that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of some of those assignments, and music history thrown in. And Mr. Mack was just such an inspiring person. You just wanted to work really, really hard for him. And so we did. Then the next year, or the summer of that year, our high school band director, Ed Hickman, this was back in the days when the high school guy, he wrote everything. He wrote all the drill, he wrote all the music, he did everything. And Mr. Hickman was a very, very talented writer and arranger. As a matter of fact, he grew up here in Birmingham before I went to the University of Alabama, before going to Dothan and being the head band director there the only band director for many, many years. So during the summer, he was on a 12-month contract. So during the summer, he would show up to work every day and start writing the show. He'd write the music, then he'd chart out the drill. And back in those days, the drill was like all those step 2 in zone kind of entered drills, and we were a little bit old fashioned. When everybody else drum corps stuff was coming along, they were doing cool sideline entrances and stuff like corner entrances. We were still doing the old step 2 drills. But anyway, he brought all the music. So the summer between my junior and my senior year, I went to the band room like every day and just watched him arrange. And he taught me how to arrange. Mr. Mack had taught me all of the music theory fundamentals. And then Mr. Hickman helped to show me how to apply that in a practical application, and actually how to arrange a piece. I just sat there and watched him do it, and we talked about it, and he showed me. And then he told me, he said, well, it's time you wrote something. So I picked Paul McCartney's Silly Love Songs, and I charted it out. I copied all the parts, and the high school band played it on the field my senior year. Have no idea if it was any good or not, but for a senior in high school, that was a big deal. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so I just kind of got the bug and just kept going and tried to do more things. And when I went to Troy State, Dr. Long was the director of bands there. And the first theory teacher I had there was a guy named Jim Mahaffey. And and he was there. He was just an incredibly talented arranger. He wrote some big band pieces for the entire. We called it the reading band, which was the what they call the symphony band.
Yeah.
Just some Cole Porter things and Warren Barker things that were just phenomenal. And then the copyright law stuff really started to kick in, and so they couldn't do those anymore. But as a matter of fact, I think Jim left Troy, and I think he's still in the San Antonio area and still writing and arranging music for bands out there. At least he did for several years, I know. So anyway, we would did some arranging stuff and some writing stuff, and it just kind of carried on with the basic classical training and everything. But Dr. Long he was director of bands then. We just lost him here recently. Just a tremendous man. Was really a visionary, and he went out and he got the absolute best people he could to come to Troy to learn from. Little bitty old Troy, Alabama, South Alabama town, and here's William Revelle.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to come, and you can look.
Right.
One of the big names that he got was a name that not too many people know anymore. I know you will, Larry. But we had Paul Yoder, Dr. Paul Yoder, on staff at Troy, and Dr. Yoder was one of the very first people to ever really write for school bands. And this would have been back, I guess, in the 40s and 50s. He started this. As a matter of fact, I think he was instrumental in working with Vandercook in getting the Midwest Clinic started. I may be wrong about that, but that goes to show how far back he goes. And so Dr. Yoder taught arranging. So I took arranging from Dr. Yoder, and it was just such an incredible experience. As a matter of fact, he did a series of method theory books for a long time. It was the standard, the master theory notebooks, workbooks, or something like that. There was like a set of 6 of them. And the 5th and 6th one, I think, got into actually how to write music for band. And those things were the gold standard for, 20, 30 years when it came to working out of music. So, and as it turned out, Robert W. Smith was also in that same arranging class that summer with Dr. Yoder. And I like to tease Robert about it. I said, yeah, we both took Dr. Yoder for arranging. He said, obviously, Robert made a better record. Which, by the way, is not true. But he did go on to study with Alfred Reed at the Frost School of Music. So maybe that was just a teeny little leg up there. So, but that's, and I kind of, when I got out of college, I really wanted to keep writing and keep arranging. So I would start writing things for my high school band. And this is even before we had copy machines, and so you had to do everything by hand on the stencils, the Spirit Master stencils. And we didn't know any better, so you just did it. But one of the things that and I really kind of regret this too, but I was just so overwhelmed. I was just so overwhelmed as a beginning teacher that I couldn't keep up both sides of things. So I was like, I'm killing myself trying to write this piece. And Larry Higgins, John Higgins, has got it over here for 25 minutes, So I kind of put it aside for a while. When I wound up back in Birmingham in Alabama, I kind of got back into writing a little bit. And then about, it's probably about 8 or 9 years ago, we were doing a custom marching band show. And I had a guy that would write the music for us. And what I would do is I would send him sketches, like just cut out snippets of songs and say, hey, this and this, and just whatever you think, then do something really crazy with it. And then I got to where I would just sort of sketch it out a little bit more in music. And then I would sketch it a little bit more and sketch it a little bit more. And then finally I realized this particular year, it's like, hey, all I got to do is copy the parts and we're done. So then I wrote the next 5 or 6 marching band shows that we did at Thompson High School. And then I don't know. I just always wanted to try my hand at some young band stuff, and I wrote a couple of pieces for young band, and then one thing that did happen, two things that actually happened. We were getting ready for a Christmas concert with our top group, our wind ensemble, I guess 6, 7, 8 years ago. Maybe not that long, maybe 4 or 5. And we were about a month out, and I needed something to start the concert with. And so I just spent a week and did a piece called Ornaments, which is available with Excelsia. And that was the start of that, for sure.
Yeah.
So, and then we were getting ready to transition into another school, and so I wanted to do a piece to kind of commemorate that. So I wrote a piece that sort of took all the tunes that were special to Thompson High School and put them all into one big arrangement too. But yeah, so, and then after that, you know, you start hearing your kids play your music, and you get a couple of things published, and then then it just kind of takes off. Johnny Vinson down at Auburn is a real dear friend of mine, and I would take some of the stuff that I had written, and I would go and spend a day with him, and
Yeah.
he would go through all of my scores, and he was always so magnanimous. I mean, such a great guy. He would go, "Now, John, it's not wrong, but I wouldn't do it that way." And about that, and that was like a private lesson with one of the most successful composer arrangers in the business, and to this day we still talk back and forth. But he was the one. I asked him if he thought that any of my stuff was good enough to be published, and he said yes, it was. And he said, but he said the thing you want to do is, he said, you want to find a small publisher and look for their list of contributors. And if there are a bunch of names that you don't recognize, then send it to them. It was not, it was literally 3 days after that conversation, I saw the Facebook post where Excelsia was launching. And started sending stuff into Tyler, Carey, and Larry, and there it goes. So it's been awesome. It's been great.
Well, I think that's great. And, you know, I know you've mentioned, you know, several people in your life that have, you know, influenced you and along the way. I guess one of the other things that my students were asking was, is it difficult getting into composing? And what are some programs that you like to use?
Getting to be a composer, I don't think it's difficult. Maybe getting published might be a little bit different. Might be a little bit different thing. I mean, in terms of the programs that are out there, of course, the standard for the industry is Finale, and then and I started on Finale years and years and years ago. And then about 6 or 7 years ago, I transitioned into Sibelius for a variety of reasons. But now there are a lot of free programs that are out there. I think there's things like Noteflight and MuseScore and Finale Notepad, and Sibelius has one now called Sibelius First. I think those are all free versions. I'm sure they're also very, very limited in what they can do. But for students that are wanting to get started in that, then absolutely. You know, learning to become a composer is like, I think, number one, you're always learning. You never get to that point when you arrive. But it's a lot like practicing your instrument.
Right.
You want to be good at your instrument, you practice a lot. If you want to be good at composing or writing, you write every day. So yeah, I mean, you have to get, I think anybody that's students that are wanting to get into it, you've got to have the foundation, at least some bare minimal foundation of music theory. I mean, you don't need to know how to do a 12-tone row or any of that kind of stuff, but you need to understand at least how to write SATP format. And then I think from then it's just a matter of like, the best thing probably is just to write for your own instrument and then maybe start writing duets for a friend, for you and a friend to play, and then maybe just expand that to 4-part, you know, and it would need the guidance of the band directors for sure, especially middle school guys.
Right.
Still, you know, heck, you never know. That's how Tyler Grant got started, with your coworker, as a matter of fact.
I mean, you just don't know. We had a kid, you know, just a beginner kid that was struggling to remember their notes by looking at it. And I'm like, well, write it out, you know, sit home, write it out. And it's funny because she came in with a song that she wrote herself. And I'm like, you just don't know. I don't know if they understand what they're capable of too. So,
right. And that's the thing too, when they're at that age and their minds are so young and so flexible, and they're not, they haven't been conditioned to understand that you have limits, or they haven't been taught that you have limits. I mean, that's when they're their most creative. That's when you strike on that fire and say, look, go crazy with it.
Right.
It's not good. It doesn't matter. You know, just keep doing it. Just like practicing. You want to get better? Keep practice. You want to be a good composer? Keep writing.
Right. And so you kind of mentioned like how someone else would get started, like maybe writing their own instrument. Now, a question that I was asked from the students is, or they'd like to ask you is there an instrument that you like to start with when you compose?
That I like to write for, or that I use as a tool to write with?
Or no, is there like a specific like clarinet, flute, trumpet? Is there a certain instrument that you like to compose the part for?
Combinations I like to do. Not really. I've got several ensembles that are published. I really like writing for brass quintets, or woodwind quintets, or brass choirs, or woodwind choirs, or a flute quartet that I've done here this past year. I guess having been a band director, an active band director for 38, 39 years, I just love the sound of a really, really fine concert. I love the darkness and the richness that those sounds can get. So I really love writing. I really love writing for bands, for young bands especially. So yeah.
Okay. One of the things that specifically I asked my 7th graders who got to play your piece Skybound this year. Yeah. And they wanted to know what inspired you specifically to write that piece.
Yeah, well, this is kind of a funny story. First of all, thank you very much for doing that piece. I appreciate that very, very much. And
we loved it.
Yeah, and it was a great kick getting to come up there and work with you guys on that a few weeks back when things still had some semblance of normality, huh? But,
right.
But this kind of a funny story. I had gotten my first couple of pieces published with Excelsior, and it was really bitten by the bug, and just really wanted to try to write some stuff with that. I don't even think I had the templates yet that we used. So I was at band practice one day, marching band. This would have been in first week or two of August. It was blazing hot, and I was on the tower. So we were taking like a 10-minute break, and I know the band directors always fuss at the kids because they're daydreaming and not focused. Well, a lot of times the directors are not very focused either, and not exactly into it. So anyway, we were on a break. It was blazing hot, and I just didn't feel like climbing down off the tower, so I just stayed on the tower. It was 10 minutes, so whatever. I had water. So I was sitting there. It was a beautiful day. Had a lot of clouds, blue skies. Had a lot of clouds in the skies, and I was trying to think of what the next thing I was going to do would be. And I saw those clouds, and I thought, what would it sound like if you just punched through those clouds, flying through those clouds? I said, what would that sound like if you were just not in a plane or a jet or anything, but just, I don't want to make it sound like Superman, blue and red tights or anything, but just
Right.
if you were just your subconscious self or whatever could just take off and run as fast as you can and then just leap in the air and then just soar through those clouds, what would that feel like? And that's where that opening motif came from. Bum, 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 bum. That
Yep.
started, and then the piece just kind of went through that, and then after you kind of take off and are racing through the clouds a little bit, what if you just kind of glided through what would that sound like? That's kind of what inspired that middle section. So to answer your student's question, I came up with that song by daydreaming at band practice.
Awesome. They will love
it, but it happened.
And one of them also, and I'm going to assume it kind of goes hand in hand, but one of them said, well, how did you come up with all of the awesome dynamic changes that you put in there? And I'm assuming it kind of had to coincide with that.
Yeah. So, you use dynamics to kind of create a feeling or a mood or evoke some sort of emotion. And this is one of the things about writing that I've kind of learned. One of the questions I get asked a lot is why I got into music, which you did. And I don't know why any of us really do anything sometimes. And I don't know sometimes if I chose music or I don't know if on some level it kind of called to me instead.
Right.
And I think those of us that are musicians really understand that. You mention that to somebody who's not a musician, they start giving you the hairy eyeball and they go, okay, I need to kind of like, we're going to increase social distancing by like about tenfold.
Yeah.
I think composing is kind of the same way. It's like, how do you figure out the dynamics and the style and the rhythms of the piece? I think sometimes you get an idea and it's not so much of you figuring out what to do with it, but you just try to figure out where the song's trying to go and then do that. And that's
right.
the way it's worked a lot for me. It's like you can be anywhere and all of a sudden a song will just come into your head. And I have learned that if you've got an idea or something like that pops into your head, you better write it down quick, because you'll get something that'll happen in your brain, and you'll go, okay, I've got to remember that. And as soon as I get someplace, I'll write it down. Well, you get there, and then you realize that idea is like smoke. It's like vapor. It's gone. So
right.
You've got to do that.
Well, I think like what you touched on is, it choosing you.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. As musicians, like just when you're playing, you have those moments. And I would assume with writing, it's going to be the same. You have emotions and feelings. I mean, people have connections in time with specific music, specific pieces. A song will remind them of a certain point in their life. I would think at this point and where we are as a society, it really is going to help our students connect with that, so that they don't lose out on why it's so important in their lives.
I think so. I think so too. And I think it's going to be interesting to see 6 months, a year from now, some of the incredible music that's going to come out of all of this too. That's
right.
A reflection of all those emotions. When we do give concerts, our number one job is to connect with the audience.
Right.
And I honestly feel through this, I honestly feel that the music flows through us, through our instruments, and tries to connect to the audience. And I think that's a composer's job too. The music flows through us, through whatever program, to connect to the performers that in turn connect to the audience in whatever way and however way that speaks to them. But I firmly believe that. And like I said, writing music, a lot of times it's just like sitting there and trying to figure out what is this trying to be? And
right.
Listening to it, going with that.
I think that's a great lesson, like I said, for now, as we're going into this social distance teaching, it is how can we have students just connect? You know, we need them to realize that this should be an outlet for them, a release from everything else that's going on, the craziness that is society right now. So
Absolutely. And just to fall in love with, I mean, you know, the kids love being in band. It's a big social thing though for the majority of them.
Sure.
You know, but this is a time too when it's like, you know what, kids, I don't care what you, just go play anything, make something up.
Play something fun. Find your favorite.
If you want to send it to me, send it to me. Let me enjoy it. It's the idea of communicating on a level that is so uniquely human, in that we just have that need to do. I mean, you can't, if you could, you can't use words to describe it.
Right.
If you could, you would just say it. But, so yeah, no, I think you're onto something there. I think this is a real opportunity to get kids to even understand there's a deeper meaning to this than just the social aspect of being in band every day.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the other questions that really kind of touched me too, and I'd be interested in to know myself, is my student said, you know, you've been involved in the music world and done a lot of things, received a lot of awards. And so how do you remember and cherish the best moments and make the most of those memories?
Far and away, it's the people, it's the connections that you make. It's the musical experiences that are shared with the students that you have. And not just shared, not just in this moment, or not just their senior year or their junior year, but over the course of their band, everything that you've forged a relationship, a musical relationship with those with your students, musically and personally, and those are the things that are the most cherished of all. Band contests, music performance assessments, marching contests. I bet we moved 700-800 trophies out of our old band room into the new. And you know, I'd love to tell you that I could go, oh, I remember this. Oh, I remember that one. Oh, I remember.
Right.
Now I might remember the kids. If I see the kids' faces, I'll go, oh yeah, you remember what we did, you know, and just some of those really special musical moments. A couple of the big standouts, though, we played for the National Concert Band Festival twice, which was really cool, and we were one of the first recipients of the National Band Association Blue Ribbon Awards when they started those up. So those are kind of some benchmark things, but by and large, it's the people you meet, the connections you make as you go, as you forge ahead. And, you know, that's how I got to know Dick Floyd, and he's gotten to be such a great friend. He's come and worked our band for the last 7 or 8 years. And just a tremendous mentor. And, you know, those connections lead to other connections, which lead to other connections. But the best moments of all, the things that make the memory special are the people.
Yeah. And I think that's so important to remember. Again, I keep coming back, but to where we are now, that students realize that that's what it's about. It's about the people. It's about the relationships. I'm where I am because of the music teachers in my life.
Sure.
And, you know, whether they go into music or not, they are who they are because of the people in their lives too.
Right. And I don't know how everybody's going to feel about this, but I don't even know that it's important that all of our students go into music. I mean, that's not the end goal for me. Was never to have all of my students become music ed majors. That you can't do that, because I know, as much as I love all my students, I know good and well they've all not been called to be a music teacher, and they had great experience in band, and so they wanted to continue that great experience in band. But it's like, there's a lot more to it there's a whole lot more to that. But I really believe that we have so many community bands in the Birmingham, Alabama area, and just seeing all of those community bands thrive and flourish. I don't know if that's not a bigger testament to our music education programs than how many kids we send off to music ed school, or how many kids wind up being professional musicians, because that's a real small percentage. But anybody can be playing a community band. And I run into students that are in college all the time that are doing career tracks with engineering or nursing or something else, and they go, well, I had to drop out of band. I just didn't have time. Don't worry about that. It'll come back to you. If you've got the heart of a musician, it's going to come back to you in some shape, form, or fashion. But once you're a musician, you'll always be a musician.
Right.
And I encourage you, just don't let go of that. When you see those opportunities, if you haven't played your horn in 5, 10, 15 years, come play in my band. I don't care. I'd love to have you back. And again, it's about making connections with the people. For me.
Yeah. And I think that kind of ties into the last thing I was going to ask is, or my student asks is, what keeps you going? Why do you continue to do this?
That's a very good question. That's a great question. And I've been trying to think of a definitive answer, and I just don't really have any. I just, and it's not that you just have to have something to do. I'm semi-retired, which means I don't have to go to school every day, but I do still work in the school though. But I don't know, it's just something that's inside of you. Why did you have to be a musician? Why does anybody choose to do anything? I think it's just kind of a drive that you have. And I don't know, I've just always been real hungry to learn more about what we're doing. I was reading, as a matter of fact, this morning I'm going through the Ed Lisk books, and what I never have before, and I don't know why. It was really crazy, but even though I don't have a teaching gig every day, I still want to learn as much about that as I can. And I do get to do a lot of clinicking, so so maybe I'm still imparting that way. But I think for those of us that are musicians, continuing to do it is just as natural as breathing or drinking water. I guess I could stop, but I sure don't want to. Sure, I can't imagine my life without it. And the cool thing about being a musician is, if you're a professional athlete, you've got a few good years. But being a musician, you can do that up until the time you go to that great big band practice in the sky, like Dr. Long used to talk about. So
Right.
I don't know. I don't know that I can do anything else. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but
Well, no, I think it does, because, and you're right. If you're in athletics, you may have a few years or of your best years, and you can continue to go on and coach, which I think is what in the music world too.
Absolutely.
Also go on and do what you're doing and continue to compose, continue to teach kids, continue to affect those kids in a way that's going to affect their future and
Sure.
people they talk to, their future as well.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about music. Music is so multifaceted. There's so many things you can do in music that are not sort of indirectly related, but it's not the same thing every day. You can play trumpet, you can write music, you can be a performer, you can be a conductor, you can be a writer, you can be an author. There's so many different things that you can do with it. You could do classical, you can do jazz, you can pop, contemporary, you can whatever. I mean, it's whatever is speaking to you, you can go do. And that's just what I would encourage all kids to do too. So.
Yeah. Well, I know my kids will definitely be excited to see some of their questions answered. And
Awesome.
I definitely appreciate it and your time.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you, Stephanie, for asking all the great questions. And John, thanks for being with us.
All
And
right.
we appreciate it. And we hope your students get something out of it, Stephanie. And we hope that other students around the country will learn more about John and band directors as well, and want to play lots and lots more of his music.
Take
All
care.
right.
All right.
Sounds
Take
good.
care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
We'll see you.
Bye.